Divorce is a very emotive subject. When we say divorce, we mean a married couple that are living together, have adopted children, or have the biological children, or don't have any. The moment they feel they want to legally separate, not just separate, but legally separate, so that their marriage is legally annulled. That's what we are calling divorce. And you have said that the first thing is, if you're a Christian, divorce is not sanctioned by the Bible. So the first reason why you need to avoid divorce is because the Bible doesn't support it. But you have also said the other reason why you should not be supporting anything to do with the Bible is the fact that it has a negative impact on children. Very, very negative impact on children. But it has more than that. It will affect finances because it affects your socioeconomic status. When you get loans from a bank and when you are buying things, you have two people contributing to it. So you have what economists call economies of scale. Once you have split everything, you go back to losing the synergy of working together. In fact, even anybody insuring you or banking for you will look at you not very positively once you are actually divorced. If you can see all these negative things, can you see what it will mean if you actually go ahead and divorce? Can you see why the problem you are having may be too small to warrant that kind of a view? Have you thought of what it will do to relationships? People knew you as together. For the rest of your life, you have to keep explaining. And the way they relate with you will certainly change. And it doesn't matter what you do. They meet your ex-husband or ex-wife and other things arise. It's a complex situation. That's why you can see the Bible has very good reasons why it's asking you, stick in there. How you went for family meetings, how you went for holidays, all your traditions. That's part of how it will affect the children. Will all be gone. Your calendar has to change. Can you imagine what do you do with your husband's parents, your in-laws, who love you, are happy with you, and I do not understand why you are leaving? And it becomes quite a challenge in itself. So it affects much more than just the children we talked about. And it's something that you need to ask yourself whether you want to be with them, whether you want to carry out with all those negative effects, and whether you'd rather have those negative effects than stay given the challenges you are actually getting currently. And so the whole idea behind discussing this is so that you can weigh. Of course, it's a bigger subject in the sense that now we are getting to where the number of divorced people will be equal to or more than the ones who have not yet divorced. I think it's the US where they say that every 13 seconds there's a couple separating. That's quite a serious piece of data you have to think about. And all of it may be because the problem you're having currently such that you feel like they are too much. I want you to think long term. And ask yourself whether living with the challenges that you are facing currently is as bad as the impact that will happen if you choose not to stay in the marriage. Rest assured that if you choose divorce, the whole process is messy. And so it causes you a lot of grief. And it could actually lead to trauma and depression. All of it from the separation process. And it's your own grief, but it's also that of your children. You have invested quite a lot in your relationship with your spouse. The moment you are apart, you will be happy one problem is over, but you'll be left with, for the rest of your life, thinking about what could it have been saved? Could it have been? Is there something that could have helped it? So you have to think about how to relate with your ex-spouse once he is gone. Think about the financial stress, like we said. Think about the emotional stress that will come. And of course, I'm saying, look at all that plus the problems you are currently facing, because I'm admitting there must be issues that are leading you to divorce. Think about the possibility that even if you have a chance of remarriage, the chances of another divorce are higher. In fact, some data say that 60% of divorcees who remarry will divorce again. That's how serious the issue is. That once you do it the first time, it makes you less tolerant, less able to hold. So chances that of going into divorce are much higher than that you'll not divorce once you get into another. And you go again through the same traumatic experience. In fact, some of the data is saying that marriages, chances of dissolving is 93%. 93%. If you are divorced twice, there's a 93% chance even that marriage will not last. But my guess is that once you are used to it, marriage is hard work, like I've been saying. So once you are used to it, to divorcing, instead of dealing with the matter, you rather just divorce. And you know something? Marriage is enjoyed because of the ability of resolving conflict. Conflicts are a must in marriage. So the only thing is, every time you go over conflict, your marriage becomes deeper. You go through another conflict, your marriage, the result is a deeper relationship, more ability to be vulnerable, more trust. All of it out of the challenges you are going through. So if you don't want to have to work them out, there are no chances that once you divorce the first time, you're not divorced. So get ready to stay alone. You know, people carry issues from this marriage to the next one. So be very careful. Is he going to do what the other one did to me? And unfortunately, sometimes you are doing your best to ensure that the person you marry next doesn't have those problems. But you are who you are. And there are chances. Of course, one of the biggest things that you are going to go through is loneliness. Not loneliness because your spouse is not there, but loneliness because you lose friends. They were mutual friends. Especially if you have been married for more than 10 years, you have created mutual friends, and those relationships will be tricky because you don't even want to meet them in case they ask you about your spouse. You may be single, but single and lonely. You might still find friends, that's possible, but you'll have lost a lot of friends among the people you had when you are married. You know, one reason why you are losing friends is because you yourself do not want to be asked about your spouse, so you keep off. So you are the one keeping off. It's not that friends don't want to be friends with you. You are the one keeping off. But sometimes it's you are the friends because they don't want to make choice. They don't have to choose sides. So they would rather run away from both of you so they don't have to make a choice. They would like to imagine they are still friends with both. But what happens is that they run away. How can they still be claiming to be friends? The end result is loneliness because of that divorce, because you are running away from the very people who care from you. And you know, the whole issue, one of the tough things about divorce is how to separate who owns what. And when you understand how you acquired them in love and romance, the whole separation process will be a problem. This photograph is mine. No, it should not be yours. I don't want you to remain with the of the family photos, because they capture very positive times, and when you see them, more pain comes. So you don't want to have them, and yet you want to have them. It can be the whole process of dividing what you own can be a problem. To be exactly the same, whenever a holiday comes, maybe it's Easter, there are things you used to do in Easter. When you start realizing that he could be doing it with somebody else, that holiday becomes a real problem and a real challenge for you. But it's a whole issue about singleness. You are not used to it. You lost singleness. And although single people are many, it may not be possible that you have that you have forgotten and no longer quite ready for it. You know, Romans 12 verse 18 says, if it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. That should be what you are saying about your spouse, that you do not want to end up in problems. You want to spend time with him, in as long as it depends on you. So divorce should be because of the other person, not because of you. And I think that will be something that you have to think about clearly. Because for you, you are committed to peace. And you want to stay in peace, so you do not want to be the one. So the Bible is admitting sometimes it doesn't depend on you. But yes, it's saying if it depends on you, then don't allow it. You know, because of this loneliness that you experience, because you are used to sharing with someone, now you don't have somebody who can share at that level. Because of that loneliness, divorced people tend to finally run to alcohol. And once you become an alcoholic, my friend, you are all the way down, socially, emotionally, financially, and finally death. So people that are divorced are more, they say they are 3 times as likely to have drinking problems than married people. 3 times. But even more frightening is suicides. They claim, some data claims, the suicide rate is almost 3 times higher among the divorced than among people staying in marriage. And it doesn't mean that they are staying in marriage because they have no problems. It's that they have learned how to cope with one another. So that this loneliness has negative impact. You need to think about it before you decide you are divorcing. An American study, maybe it's the National Institute of Mental Health, that the divorced are about 4 times likely to have problems with depression are those who are married and never divorced. I would assume the National Institute of Mental Health who knows something about, or two about mental health. They are saying you may think you're having problems now in your marriage, divorce, and then see the kind of loneliness and depression that is consequent. You know, the prevalence of suffering from any psychiatric disorder over a lifetime has anyway kind lower if you stay in a stable marriage. And it's something that you need to be aware of, and therefore don't ignore as you weigh. I'm trying to help you to weigh the problems you are having and the problem you will get if you divorce. And it's important that you ask yourself, you know, earlier we said that the offsprings of divorced parents are 20 to 30% more likely to have health problems themselves or to be injury prone than youngsters whose original parents are still together. That's what the data is saying. And you need to weigh it in, even as you decide what to do. So, the Creator, God, must have known very well when he arranged marriage to be something you stay in, whether challenging, not challenging, fight in there, rather than try to go different ways. You know, Christians must be committed and seek God's help to sustain their marriage rather than to seek any of the possibilities of divorce. And it's my prayer that even as we discuss this, any Christian will be thinking clearly of what he can do to ensure that the marriage stays. And last, over the long haul, until death do us part. You know, we seem to give the impression that this is this impact is only on young children, but I hope I can demonstrate the problem is far much bigger than that. That it doesn't work. That it doesn't just work on young children. Even your adult children will be affected, and they will suffer in the process. My prayer is that you ask yourself, how can I deal with my marriage? How can I salvage my marriage? That will be something that will be important. And I don't think an outsider will be able to answer the question for you. It's you, because each circumstances are different. The only thing is that we are saying, do your best to salvage your own marriage. Do your best to save it. And at least you should not be the one that is causing the divorce. You know, a strained relationship with the next spouse is draining in itself. That's what you'll be having, because you still have to relate because of the many connections. And so you although you are no longer together, it will still cause you stress. And we have said it will cause you to end up with lower well-being, emotional distress, and always wishing, should I have done it, or should I not have done it? And it's something that you have to ask yourself whether you want to continue with it or not. You know, since you are taking divorce as an option, my friend, think again. Think about the guilt that's likely to follow you. Maybe I should have done this, we could have done things. The possibility of guilt, I'm not saying it has to be there. The possibility of guilt after you have gone different ways, could I have savaged it? Think about the depression which I've referred to that's likely to come out of loneliness. Think about the possibility of regarding yourself as a failure because you failed in one of the most important investments in life. And once you start calling yourself a failure, you end up failing in all other areas because of you no longer believe you have the ability. Think of possibility of anger and what anger can do in your professional life, in your other relationships. All that came out of this decision to go your separate ways. It really looks like divorce as a medicine seems to be worse than the disease. You know, if you think about it. Because that loneliness, you had loneliness even when you were together, but at least you had somebody to quarrel. Now you start going on your own, and you are sure. And we have talked about the financial loss for both, because you lose the economies of scale. All those are things that will happen and cause you chaos. But I think the biggest challenge will be your relationship with God. As long as you are reading the Bible on a regular basis, and you read what the Bible says on the topic of forgiveness, and realize that you did not forgive, that is if you are the cause of the divorce. How will you deal with it? You know, the Lord's Prayer puts it in very graphic language. It says, "Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us." In other words, put in a different language, don't forgive me, God, until and unless I forgive my spouse. Then you haven't forgiven him. What does that mean? It means you have not accepted forgiveness from God either. You can't say the Lord's Prayer after divorce without feeling, do I really have to pray this prayer? The wording is not right. It's saying that forgive me as I forgive. In other words, don't forgive me unless I forgive. And yet somebody have decided, I've forgiven everybody else except my significant other. I can't forgive them. So do you understand what it will do to your spiritual relationship with God? Do you know that if you are in a good relationship with God, it doesn't matter what problem you are going through. It may be a medical issue threatening your life, but you can go through it in as long as you know you are indebted to God. It can be a financial crisis that you are going through, but in as long as you know you are in it with God, you can. It can be a relational problem, but in as long as you know you are there with God, you can do it. The moment you start having a problem with God, because you are not doing what His word is saying, what will that do to your prayer life, to the joy that you experience in the Lord, in the knowledge He is with you, in the knowledge you are on the winning side because you are on His side? If you are not on God's side, can you see what it will do to you spiritually? I think that's something that you need to deal with very, very clearly, even as you try. And I keep repeating myself, I'm not playing down on the issues you are going through in marriage. I'm only saying, think twice. Think about the new issues. You have sorted out one issue, I agree. But look at the new issues you have brought up, especially if the one is getting the divorce and the separation? It's something that you have to ask yourself. So, it is something you have to ask yourself. How will you relate with God? But in addition to that, so that you are having a problem with God in terms of how you relate with Him, and rejoicing and finding a place to give all your problems. Now you may be total on your own. Chances of backsliding and losing your faith are very high. And is that worth the risk? Because if you lose faith, it means an eternity of lostness, not just on this earth. Marriage is a temporary thing. You just are here with it. But there's an eternity to live. Would you risk losing eternity by going a different way from the Lord's ways? But the other thing that you have to think about is the testimony. The many people who look up to you, the many people who are thinking about getting saved because of your testimony, because of your walk with the Lord. And all of a sudden they see, she has given up on God. Can you see the impact it does to the Christian witness? Every divorce among Christians does a devastating blow on the Christian testimony. Because a lot of people feel like if only you are Christians, our marriage will be better. Then Christians now divorce. And all of a sudden I said, wow. Now if they can't make it, who can? Is Christianity real? Is this God of theirs really real? If he is, how come they are going different ways and the both of them are still claiming to be Christians? It does a big harm, big harm to Christian testimony. And it will be important to ask yourself, would you want to harm the Christian testimony? Is that what you'd want? Isn't there another way of sorting out your problems other than divorce? Because of course I'm not playing down on your problems, but you need to think, have you tried everything? That's something that you have to ask yourself. Nobody else can answer it for you. And my prayer is that God in His own wisdom will help you to deal with it and to commit to doing. One of the ways of dealing with it, of course, being frank, that although you failed, it doesn't mean others will fail. And I think that's important. But one of the worst impacts in this is that it harms the possibility of your children trusting in God. When they have seen you no longer think God can sort out your matter, why do they have to be Christians anymore? I think that will be something that you have to deal with. My prayer is that as you think about this, that God will help you to look at your life, look at the impact it has on your children, and ask yourself, do I want to go to this? Think about the impact it makes on testimony and witness of Jesus Christ trying to bring people to the Lord, and say, do I want to go this? Think about the impact it will make on the both of you, because both of you end up in problems. It will not be one. Both of you will suffer as a couple. And then think about what impact it will have on yourself long term, and say, do I really want? Are the problems I'm having not too small compared with the problems I'm likely to go to as I try to live away from my spouse, away from my husband, away from my wife in the long term? The conclusion is that you have to find a way of staying in the marriage rather than divorcing. And the very worst, at least live separately to give each other time to think. But don't carry a legal divorce yet, because you want to give yourself time to seek the mind of God.